All right, everybody. This is Jeffrey Jansen here, and as I promised everybody, I'm here with Troy over at the Illinois Veterans Home, and also my daughter. And what we're gonna do is I've got a couple cameras going on right now, but this is gonna be the main feed. And I'm gonna ask Troy just a couple questions. We're just gonna talk a little bit. This is about what people are looking for in the job market when you're going, whether it's military, high school, or college, and anywhere from applications to resumes, like I've been promising everybody. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to Troy. All right. And Troy, if you'd introduce yourself, please, that'd be great.
I'm Troy Colverson. I'm the administrator here at the Illinois Veterans Home.
Okay. And how many people would you say kind of work on a daily basis with the veterans out here?
We have over 500 employees. In a day's time, we'll have 350, 360 on staff at any point in time during the day.
That's awesome. So you would say that, I guess, over the years, now where else have you I've never actually asked you that before. Where else have you actually been? I mean, have you been in management positions and roles throughout your life and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, so I've been in long-term care my entire career. Right out of college, I got my license for long-term care administrator, and worked as administrator since 1990. So that's coming up on getting close to 30 years, 29 years. So I've been in all sorts of arrangements from in the private sector, nonprofit. I've worked for nonprofit organizations, church affiliated organizations, and here we are to the grandiose veteran supported facility. So. Been a broad spectrum in my career.
So I would say one of the reasons why I came to you is knowing you from the Marine Corps League and always helping with different things we got. You seem to be more of people oriented, so I thought you would be one of the best people to ask. To the thousand. There's all kinds of people out there always looking for jobs. Okay, and people always go to college professors, and there's nothing wrong with going to a college asking about a job and everything. But I like to go right to people that have been around people all the time. They've hired people, they fired people. This isn't a job interview here. I'm just here to ask you, when someone's coming, let's just start from the beginning. When someone's coming in, say, to the vet's home or any place, what would the very first thing, say they just say, hey, I see this place on the street, I bet you I can go in there and turn in an application or whatever else. What would you say would be the best way to handle if you're coming in to get a job? Let's start with dress attire. Okay. If I came in, and just so people know, and this is me usually talking a little bit, I'm going to switch this over here. So I go in, and I come in, I'm wearing all baggy clothes and everything else, and I go to your secretary, or I go to the administration and say, hey, can I get an application, please? That's probably not something I would recommend doing. Am I correct on that?
Yeah.
Could you kind of tell me what you're looking for, and are people being evaluated right away from the time they walk in, which I know of several places I've had. I know they told me that from the time I walked in that door where they met me, even on the phone calling, I was being evaluated. Would you elaborate a little bit?
So let me start by saying, first of all, there is a difference in where you apply. For example, at a state facility or a state agency like the Vets Home, like Unemployment Security, there's typically a very structured process. And a lot, especially with the state agencies, they like to take the subjectivity out. What I mean by that is they like to take away the ability for a person to judge someone or look at those non-communicative signals that they're sending. But in the real world, in the outside world, you're being critiqued from the time you walk in the door. When you walk in that door, I tell people, you never come to apply that you're not in some type of a professional dress of some type. Now that may mean that could mean business professional, which I call a slacks and a shirt. I don't believe you have to actually apply for a job in a coat and tie.
Right.
But when you're going in, you're doing two things. You're selling yourself. You're selling your visual, because people are you're a customer of the people you're seeing. So you're trying to impress them as a customer. So they're going to look at you visually. They're going to listen to your speech and how your vocabulary is. They're going to look at your personal mannerisms, where your hands are at. Are you nervous? Are your hands in your pocket? Do you look like a self-starter or just someone who's out here looking to meet the requirements? So you have to sell yourself from the moment you walk in that door. So I always go back to business professional dress for men, especially. Now it's a different issue when it's time for the interview. When it comes time to the interview, if it's not, depending upon the type of position it is, if it's a skills or technical, you need to look nice. You need to wear a pair of either slacks or blue jeans. You can wear jeans, but maybe that's for a welding job.
Right.
Okay? That would not work for a professional services job. When I go to an interview, I have a coat and tie on. There's no question, it's a coat and tie, because that's a professional interview. Always overdress for the interview. They will notice that, and they'll say, that person is prepared. So it's selling yourself.
And I'd say it's not just a coat and tie, and this is going to sound really weird, but since we are talking with military, two things. Make sure you're not a wrinkle bomb. I know it sounds really weird, but people can get a coat and tie, and like somebody might have borrowed it from their dad, or they might have borrowed it from a friend, and they just hurried up and put it on. And, sometimes it's better not to wear a tie if you don't know how to tie one. But also no cursing, no jokes. I always tell people no jokes, because I'm the type of person, if I'm around my friends, yes, I've got fun jokes. But if I'm going in for an interview, what say you? If someone, you're trying to get to know somebody, and trying to figure out, are you looking for the leaders, or are you looking for the person that's just going to hang on every word,
So when I have someone coming in to talk with me about applying for a job, I'm looking to see if they can communicate, first of all. And I am looking to see what level they communicate on. My daughter always said, Dad, you don't know a stranger. You can talk to anybody. And that comes from whatever it may be. Maybe small town where you get to know everybody. But it's good to be able to talk about a lot of things with anyone. You don't have to know everything, but be communicative. Don't be afraid to say hi. Shake a hand with a good, firm hand grip. You're talking about the apparel. Yeah, you don't want to have sloppy, wrinkled clothes, because that says, I guess what it comes down to is if they can't take care of their own attire, how can they take care of my mom or my dad in my situation?
Right.
Because we look for people here that are willing and to take care of other people. It's hard enough taking care of yourself sometimes, but we look for people that have the ability to take care of themselves and others.
Now let's move on to applications. And one of the things I like to do, and believe it or not, I do come out here on Mondays when I don't have my daughter. It's happened to be the week. But one of the things I offer is just a free class on bring in an application. Let's write it out. Let me show you how to type it out. And then I'll go for 30 minutes on that, and I'll do 30 minutes on resumes. But how would you, let's see if I can answer. Let me see if I can word this right. The difference between application and resume to me is night and day. After you've been to college and everything, you learn that you want your skills on a resume so people can learn about you. But when I was first initially getting in the workforce when I was 16, I wrote out an application. But I was always taught to type it out. Make sure it looks nice and proper and everything else. How would you say to go about doing that? And also you can break it down a little bit according to the job too. We know that also. But appearance on a resume is just like the clothes you're wearing. If you take the time...
It absolutely is. And so just a couple thoughts I have about that. A resume, everybody needs a resume. My high school son developed a resume. It didn't have to be job experience, but it could be volunteer experience. It could be skill sets. Everyone needs the resume. Okay? That describes who you are, where you've been, and it kind of lays a profile of who you are as a person. The application itself, a lot of people, first of all, may or may not let you take the application home with you. You can ask if you can take it home with you, and then absolutely I ask that you use good handwriting or type it if possible. That's always the best. But how many typewriters do we have in the 21st century now? I'm not sure we still have a lot of those out there. So good handwriting on an application is usually sufficient, but you're right on to a point here. You got to use good grammar. you can't have punctuation issues. So if you're taking it home, use the support you need to get a good looking application. Second thing, in a resume, it's always taboo to put "see resume." Some applications are extensive, and they're very extensive, and they cause you to write a lot. I'm not a big writer, but it forces you to write when you're sitting in front of someone or sitting at a desk applying for a job. They want you to use their application. The resume is just a supplement. So never say on your application, "see resume." Always write it out. Sorry, but that's a stickler. That says, what does that say? It says I'm too lazy to write out what I've got on my resume. It says I don't feel like this position is worth the handwriting cramping that I'm going to get or the time it takes to do that. So you are saying something when you put that, and it's usually not positive.
I always make sure to tell people when you're going in there with a resume or even application, have it proofread by somebody else. Do not, I know some of us have these really big heads like, oh, this looks great. But if you're somebody like me, I go so fast over my stuff sometimes, even with spell check. Talk to Text hates me, by the way, because I go so fast. But sometimes we don't see our own mistakes because we're so in the habit of making them that we don't see them. So I tell them to go over to maybe like the library. They're going to give you, there's people that look at it for free. They'll look it over, or go somewhere where they do where they help you with like manpower, the job skills, and have them look it over for you. Even a family friend or somebody that anybody be willing to look over your resume, and have a couple people look it over because they may see something that you may not have saw, or maybe won't apply to where you're going, or actually could hurt your chances of going somewhere.
Always get a third party to review your work if possible. If you have to sit and do it in front of the employer, you may not have the opportunity. Right. Reread it yourself. Write it, then reread it. Oh, I made a mistake here. But always get the third party experience if you can.
I was telling them it's like that 8th grade when they had you fill out everything on the paper, but at the very beginning you didn't read the direction and it said, put your name on the paper, turn it over, and no one did it. Push it again. And then they're like, what? Well, all you had to do is put your name on the paper. You didn't read the directions, so make sure you're reading everything. I also tell them to, and maybe you can elaborate on this, do research on the business you're going into.
Oh.
Know it. Don't just go in there applying. Know the business. Do your homework on it. Why? Because you can read anything on the internet nowadays. You can look up people. You can find out who they are. And if you take the time there and they see you took the time, they may give you the time right back.
No question. You need to do your research on the company that you're applying for. It's impressive to me when someone can quote me my turnover statistics or my resident occupancy census. I know they've done their homework there. That's impressive to me because a lot of people don't take that time to do it. That again, it's selling yourself. It says that I care enough to research, to take the time to know know the company that I'm working for. And ultimately, who you work for matters. So you as an employee need to know who you work for.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much what I wanted to do for today, and I really appreciate your time and everything. And let me switch this over here so that thank you. So everybody knows one of the reasons why I came to Troy is, first off, Troy's working with a lot of people, but I've also saw his kindness whenever he's working with all the Marine Corps League or the American Legion. His job, he's got to work with government. He's got to work with a lot of different areas. And by doing that, he's learned tact. He's learned great people skills, and just who he is working with me, being able to deal with me, that in itself is impressive. I tell you that. But he's a very honorable guy, and I know for years the Veterans Home has been part of a staple in Quincy, and I just felt that he's taking it to a whole new level, and he's able to work. Politics don't matter when it comes to working with people in the medical field or housing areas. It's about getting the job done and finding a way to do it to where everybody's happy, and he's been doing an outstanding job, and for that I commend you on. And at that, I'll give you the last word, and then we'll finish it up for today. And like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time out for me and my daughter over here, who I'm sure I'm going to be on a roller coaster when I watch this, but no, I love her to death.
Well, thank you. I think it's important that people have some of these tips, because it is, especially with the generation that we have up and coming today, speaking of your daughter, it's important. You're interviewing with a different generation. And that generation you're interviewing with typically is looking for characteristics and values that they want to see, that they hold dearly. So you need to resonate those values. So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much, Troy. I appreciate you.